I really have to say that, like, after playing Crimson Desert, like, now I've played it like a number of hours, like a multiple hours. What game? You're gonna find out. And I really think that it's like impressively good. It's very, very good. Like, there are some very, very rough edges in the game, but those rough edges are like structural problems. Like, for example, like colors and stuff like that. Overall, like, the game has improved tremendously as it's continued.
How do I talk about this one? Crimson Desert has to be the best worst game that I have ever played.
It is stole that from me.
Utterly magnificent, yet a complete train wreck at the exact same time.
Yes.
I have multiple times yelled out in frustration that I am done with this. This game is absolute garbage.
Exactly
Thrown my controller down only then to go and play it for the rest of the night. I hate this game, and I absolutely love it. I thought that Marathon was going to be polarizing.
Yes.
This is the most controversial game that we have seen in years.
I think that the controversy has kind of gone away. I think that ever since they did a couple of patches and they've fixed up some of the like little bugs and shit, like the controls, I think that a lot of the controversy has receded.
For the first time, everybody's divided over it, and it has nothing to do with social politics or monetization or anything other than the gameplay.
That's
it just comes down to a relatively good game that you have to walk through barbed wire, broken glass, and razor blades to be able to enjoy it. Some people are going to walk that path. Others are going to want to have nothing to do with it. Both are completely valid.
I think that the only problem that I really have is that barbed wire and everything that you have to walk through is not intentional. Things like the menus being confusing, things like inventory space being a problem, things like the gamma correction whenever you're seeing a light on the screen, blinding everything else. Like that's unintended difficulty, right? They didn't try to make the game that way. The game just turned out that way.
This game
I think the actual gameplay difficulty is
elevated by and a victim of its own ambition. This game just does so much. And whether it's this game's controls or its combat or its narrative or whatever it might be, these developers tried to make an everything game.
They did.
And in that, they made something so incredibly flawed. And in an industry that is so afraid of risk, I have to respect that. I really do. So today, I want to talk about my experience with Crimson Desert. I want to talk about how polarizing this game has been for the gaming community, and I also want to talk about how, for all of its flaws, I dare anybody to try to do better. So I want to start off by saying this. Crimson Desert is almost exactly what I expected it to be, and that's probably why I'm a little bit more forgiving when it comes to this game, at least compared to most people. For well over a year, every single time they showed off this game, it just kept getting bigger. More mechanics, more systems, more characters, more everything. And every time I saw that, I kept thinking the same thing. There's going to be a cost for this. Because whenever a game tries to do this much, something always ends up giving. And it's usually the same two things. It's controls and writing. So going in, I was already expecting this game to have rough controls and generally generic storytelling. That wasn't really a surprise to me. The only question was,
I don't know why Korean devs can't write good stories. I don't know.
How bad was it going to be? And more importantly, whether or not this actually sinks the game. And honestly, those two concerns got answered pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Now, before this game launched, and honestly, this is where a lot of the drama started, there was a very clear split between the people that were talking about it. You had content creators who had experienced the game in previews that were being mostly positive, leaning towards what the game does well and kind of brushing past some of the rough edges, while journalists went completely in the opposite direction, hammering their frustrations and downplaying the highs. And the review numbers reflect that split in a weird way. On Metacritic,
do you guys notice something about these two different things? That all of the people that had played it for 50 to 100 hours liked it, and the reviewers that have played it for 12 hours don't. I think that's really what happened, is that, like, a lot of these people, like, I don't even know if they played it for 12 hours, to be honest. Like, I don't even believe that. I think what happened is that the reviewers didn't like the game because the game is extremely complex. And to be fair, before they did the patch, it was convoluted and it was really hard to understand what the fuck to do in the game. It was a big problem, and it was so much of a problem that they fixed it. But besides that, as soon as you understand what to do, and you're able to like, okay, this is this system. I have to intuit it this way. I have to approach it from this direction. Then you're able to do it. But I think the reason why you had a lot of these reviewers that said it was bad is because they didn't put in the requisite time to understand the game. That's fundamentally what it was.
Critic.
And that's why the difference is there between
reviews,
players.
Only 3 of them came from major outlets, while about 30% of those reviews, mostly from those same outlets, dragged that score below an 80.
Like,
now,
what do you think the probability is that these reviewers didn't play the game even nearly as long as the YouTubers? I think it's guaranteed.
I thought this was just going to be another Black Myth or a Stellar Blade situation where critics and players are just living in completely different realities. But after digging into it, that's not actually what's happening here. This game is just genuinely divisive across the board, but just not for the same reasons. Because, well, the things that people agree on are actually pretty consistent. Exploration and combat, most people really love that stuff, but where it breaks down is actual priorities. A lot of the critics are focused on the storytelling and writing or their frustrations for the review process itself. IGN is...
I'm sorry, but like, the storytelling, if you are playing a game like this and you care about the storytelling, just go watch porn for the plot. Just go read Playboy for the articles. Just stop it.
Really good example of this. They spent a noticeable chunk of their coverage just talking about their experiences with Pearl Abyss rather than actually just
it had
sticking
nothing to do with the game.
Players, on the other hand, don't seem to really care about any of that.
No.
They're just locked into the moment-to-moment stuff, the controls, the menus, the inventory, the itemization, the things that you're actually dealing with while you're playing the game every single second. And
well, this is and that exactly is the massive disconnect between developers, players, and reviewers. Is that reviewers are telling developers that players care about like plot lines and they care about these like meta level artistic things, but players play video games to play the video game. Playability and gameplay matter the most, and that's the one thing that like the priority system that these reviewers have is very clearly lacking. They're not able to appropriately and accurately gauge gameplay on the importance that I think average players put it at. Like the story is not as important as the gameplay. It's not even remotely close.
In priorities makes a lot of sense. Critics will happily throw away a game that has weak writing, while players are more than happy to scrape by if it's a good adventure.
And how do you know that? Because people play Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, Arknights Infield, Honkai Star Rail, and what's the other one? Zenless Zone Zero. All of those storylines are, some parts of it are good, most of it sucks.
That I think is very clearly reflected in how this game actually sold. Because despite how split this conversation was, this game still showed up. It launched to around 240,000 concurrent players, and even with people complaining all over the place, it still climbed.
Let me pull it up, because we didn't know if it was going to hit a new peak. Let's find out if it's going to hit a new peak. Pull it up. Damn, bro, it went up on Sunday. It almost hit a new peak today. 200 and like 250,000 people playing a week after release, a single player game. That's a success. That is a success right there. I'm sorry.
Up over the weekend, pushing closer to 250,000 concurrent players and selling over 2 million copies in its first 24 hours. It also launched to mixed reviews on Steam, which really wasn't all that surprising. But once people sat with it for a little bit longer, that score started to creep up. Now it's sitting at mostly positive, around 80%. And I don't really think that's where it's going to stop. Pretty soon after launch, Pearl Abyss had already responded. They acknowledged a lot of the issues. They said they were going to address some of the control problems. They also followed it up with a pretty big update, tightening a few things up, fixing a bunch of inventory problems. Not all of them, at least not yet.
They're better.
And even some small stuff like making sprint work on a single tap instead of having to mash the button like an idiot. Now, while this all sounds minor, for a game like this, that friction adds up fast. And oh boy, is there a lot of friction here. I did not get a review copy for this game. I was not a part of any previews. I have been playing it at the same time as everybody else, and honestly, that is probably for the best, because if I had early access, I might have committed some international crimes against humanity, against whoever designed this control scheme, the UI, and the inventory system. This game feels like you're trying to eat a $100 steak with a spoon, like you're staying...
Wow. What a fucking analogy. Trying to eat a $100 steak with a spoon. Holy shit. That is, dude, that is fucking perfect. Oh my God.
At a luxury hotel where it's only cold water and the lights turn on only if you perfectly clap the guitar solo from Through the Fire and Flames. It's like being on a perfect date with an absolute bitch. It feels like a great game.
Yeah.
That does not want you to actually enjoy.
Is that right?
You've got a stamina system in combat that you can't even see. The mini-map is shoved into the bottom left-hand corner, completely out of your natural sight line, so it's basically useless unless you stop and stare at it. The menus have menus. You are constantly digging through layers and layers just to find basic information. I am looking up guides for things that shouldn't even need guides, like camp expeditions.
I had to look up a guide for how to use and eat food on the girl, Damien, or whatever the fuck her name is, because I couldn't keybind the food. And I looked up a guide, and nobody else knew how to do it either. So I just kept pressing escape whenever I was in this fight with this guy. I kept pressing escape and going into the menu and then eating food.
Game just keeps throwing systems at you and it just doesn't explain it at all. There are mechanics that you're supposed to use that the game never even tells you that exist.
No.
Jump Force Palm is used puzzle after puzzle, and the game just never mentions it. I remember I was spending 30 minutes on one of the world puzzles thinking that I was doing something wrong. A voice on the wind kept saying, our connection isn't strong enough, which means nothing to me without any context, only for me to find out later that you can't even do certain puzzles until you've progressed further in the story. This game has no feedback.
The game, yeah, exactly. The feedback is the issue. If the game had better feedback, I don't think any of these problems would exist.
On what you were doing wrong and right.
Yeah.
Also, whoever made the spellcasters that fly around while you're fighting 50 enemies on the ground, spamming shadow bolts at you like they're basil juice from Monster Hunter, needs to be drawn and quartered.
Oh, man, I love it.
Hate you. And then there's the controls.
Oh, yes. They're so bad. They are the worst.
My God, the controls. I switched to controller because playing on mouse and keyboard felt like I was learning how to play piano from scratch, and it's not any better. Every single button is contextual. Everything overlaps.
But I don't know how to play piano.
You want to throw out your hook? Well, now you're crouching. You want to slide? Now you're throwing out your hook. You want to try to lock on? Well, now you're blinding somebody with a lantern. You want to parry? Cool. You need to stop locking on to the enemy that you're trying to parry because the lock on is on the parry button. It's insane. I've never seen anything like this before. It's like I got to the point where I was genuinely starting to question myself, like, okay, do I need to take an IQ test? Am I missing something obvious here? Am I just stupid?
See, I thought I was retarded too until I went and I watched other people, and they were even more retardeder than I was.
Or does this game just not want to be played? And that's the part that makes this all so frustrating, because underneath all of that, the reason this game is the way that it is because there is a ridiculous amount of game here, like an overwhelming amount. And the only reason that people are willing to stick through and fight through all of this friction is because of what's on the other side of it.
Because we have nothing else to play. Before this, I was playing Wuthering Waves. I was back into my old ways. I got Amiath completely leveled up, or Imeth completely leveled up. I did her entire quest line. It was beautiful. It was an amazing quest line. And I was clearing out the map, and then this game came out, and I dropped that shit like a rock. I did. I dropped it like a fucking rock. I'm back to playing this.
I'll be honest, after just a couple of hours, I was already done. I was ready to drop it, but I locked in and I kept pushing forward. And that's when I started to notice something. For every stretch of frustration, I would get these flashes of brilliance. At first, it was the story. It felt flat, generic. Honestly, it is still hot ass and may as well not even be there. But the more time that I spent with it, the more I kind of liked just being this nobody, just some John Everyman. It started to feel like I was at the beginning of some D&D campaign. I was leveled.
Well, I like that too. Like, I mean, I think that there's a lot of MMOs that treat you like you're the hero of the universe, and I don't think it's the problem. Like, it's not. You can do that, right? I mean, Final Fantasy 14 does that, right? But I like my idea. Like, I don't like the fact that you play a character that's named. If it was up to me, I would have shifted the way the story was told, and I would have made it like you're a new recruit into this group rather than you're the leader of the group.
I had no clue what was going on. I'm helping a farmer find his house, and clearing out a bandit camp, picking up random people along the way, dragging them out of bars, scraping them off the streets, bailing them out of jail, and somewhere in there, my priorities started to shift.
Anyway? Yeah.
It stopped being about chasing this clean narrative, this structured narrative that we're used to, and it just started to be about a journey. Just existing in this world, moving from situation to the next, and man, there is an adventure to be had here.
Yeah.
The game is stunning. The engine is like black magic. The performance, the lighting, the color, the draw distance. You're looking at mountains, clouds, entire towns on the horizon, and you know that you can just point your camera and just go there. No walls, no limits, just go. And yes, I know that the menus in this game and the systems in this game are overwhelming, but that's also why the world ends up feeling endless. There's always something pulling at you. I've mostly just been sticking to the campaign just to unlock things, but it still feels like I'm barely scratching at the surface of this game. There are strongholds to clear, crew members you can send out on jobs, you can rob a bank, cook, cut trees, hunt, mine, build your base, minigames, puzzles, tournaments, hidden bosses, dungeons. You're never sitting around wondering what to do next. True. I think that the best way I can describe this game is that it's a toolbox game, not just because the game still needs a lot of work, but also because,
like, for example, like, I'll give you another example for me, is that, like, so I've been trying to get the spell effect things. So you have to go into this tower. You have to climb all the way up to the top of the tower, destroy the basement of the tower, fight this most annoying fucking boss ever. It's a terrible fucking boss. And then you get teleported up into the sky lane, into the sky zone. And then you have to do like 5 different puzzles. Then you have to glide all the way across a massive area in the abyss that if you fuck it up or you don't have enough stamina, you fall down and die. Like, it's absolutely fucking insane, man. It's so good.
Because there is just a ton of stuff that I haven't even touched yet. There are whole systems that I barely interacted with. Other characters that I haven't used, and I'm still trying to figure out what my version of this game even looks like. Because it's not asking you to use everything. It's just asking you to figure out how you want to play. If you hate puzzles, well, you can go earn skill points through combat or just by engaging with the world. If you don't want to gather resources or anything like that, well, you can just loot enemies, take on bounties, rob people, rob houses, or just buy whatever you need. You don't want to hunt or cook? Go ahead and buy all that too. Can't get a handle on the controls? Use the environment. Kite enemies. Heal through all the fights. Or just do what I do and give a stone cold stunner to anything that moves. All in all, while Crimson Desert is undeniably and frustratingly a deeply, very deeply flawed game that is going to take time to improve and likely some of the stuff...
You know what this game reminded me a lot of? So, like, I'm looking at this boss, right? You have to do, like, the green punch to, like, stun him. It reminded me a lot of Demon Souls, where it was very experimental. They tried a lot of things. A lot of things didn't work. But some things did.
Is never going to improve because it's foundational. Those flaws are a consequence of offering everything and more to the player. And the
wait, you can do that? I didn't know you could do that.
The more that I play this game, the more the more I start falling in love. And while I might have to eat this steak with a spoon, I'm definitely not complaining about how it tastes. I hate to say this because this is the worst thing that you could possibly say, and it ultimately does not make a game worth buying, but it does get better the longer that you play it. At least it did for me, and I know it did for a lot of other people. I started off hating the game, and then hating the game even more, and then I started enjoying it, so then I'm not really sure if it's Stockholm Syndrome, but then after a while of still being completely frustrated, frequently, I started to love the game. And while I think that it is deeply flawed and still needs a lot of work, I still find it to be utterly brilliant, and it's going to get at least 100 hours out of me.
At least.
I feel like this game has a lot of deep reverence for past games, especially when it comes to Western games. You can see the flashes of The Witcher, Elder Scrolls, Dragon Age, maybe a little Red Dead Redemption. And, you know, I've seen a lot of critics that have been bashing the game for it. Look at them copying off of these other games and not even getting it.
Look at them copying some of the greatest games ever made. They're so stupid. Imagine wanting to make your game like some of the best games that were ever made. They're so stupid. They don't know what they're doing. If it was me making a video game, it would be so much better. It'd be so unique. So unique, so avant-garde. Oh.
Right? And it reminds me a lot of Stellar Blade for that, where Shift Up was getting a lot of criticism for riffing off of Nier Automata, but I don't think that these guys have been getting very far from where their goal is. They're pretty...
Meanwhile, the guy from Nier Automata said Stellar Blade was great. He liked it a lot. Like, these people, they're in the trenches for generals that aren't even at war. Like, what do you mean? Like, they probably like the game. They're probably flattered.
Close, man. And in some cases, they're also exceeding what people's expectations would be for some of these games. And it's very obvious that it's coming from a place of respect rather than just being a cheap imitation. Otherwise, these games wouldn't be as deep as they are or as thoughtful or as fun as they are, at least when they're allowed to be. You know, at one point I came to the realization that this was the dream game that I had when I was a kid. The naive dream game that I had when I was a kid. It reminds me when I used to talk to my buddy.
What if you could ride a dragon? Are you okay? What if you could cast a spell? Okay. What if you could? What about like a jetpack? Okay. What about can you buy a house? Okay. Yeah, true.
Also wanted to be in game development when we were kids. We'd write down all these ideas of how we wanted everything from all of our favorite games, and you know. That's not realistic.
No.
That's not how games work out. That's how you end up getting scope creep. This game is a victim of that. It's a victim of that dream. It's a victim of that ambition of wanting to make a game that does far too much than it probably should do. But in this case, I actually feel like the benefits outweigh the costs. The reason
I think like the game that I would compare Crimson Desert to the most is Where Winds Meet. They are both maximalist games that have a completely do you really need 2 card games? You need 2 card games in the same video game? Who the fuck asked for this? Where Winds Meet has that. And you know what the worst thing is? They added a 3rd one. They added another one.
This game is the way that it is because these guys dared to dream and reach at something that they otherwise shouldn't have. And to achieve that, they had to basically ignore every single industry best practice.
Yeah.
And I think more games should do the same. So earlier I mentioned how just a few hours in, I was already ready to put down the game, but I never fully explained why. Yes, this game does look incredible. Yes, the combat is fun, and there's a ton of stuff to do, but that's not actually what stopped me. What stopped me was me catching myself in the middle of an internal dialogue, being a complete hypocrite. Because while I was playing, I kept thinking to myself over and over, this might be the most inaccessible game I have ever played. It's like it's unlearned every modern gaming convention when it comes to controls, navigation, UI design, gameplay, basic usability. All of this stuff has already been fixed by other developers. And then I even caught myself agreeing with IGN's reviewer. Yes, I know, disgusting, but he was talking about the exact same thing, and then it hit me. Wait a minute. I just made a video not that long ago.
The controls were bad. I mean, they were bad. They fixed it. It was so bad they did an instant hotfix patch and apologized. Like, I don't think there's anybody that should be making excuses for that. It was obviously garbage. Because if it wasn't garbage, they wouldn't have fixed it immediately and apologized. It was trash. But the thing is that they fixed it. They're still
complaining about how this games industry has gone way too far with accessibility and how every single game is not supposed to be made for everyone. So how am I going to sit here and start complaining about accessibility when this game's lack of it is the exact reason why it can offer so much? Now, I want to be clear that does not mean this game gets a free pass. There are a ton of obvious fixes here, and to their credit, they've already been making some of them. But some other ones that could maybe make down the road is stuff like Gathering. That would be kind of nice if that was streamlined into a single prompt or maybe a dedicated mode or something like that. Something where you could just automatically use it instead of forcing tools every single time you need to do something. Those are solvable problems. But where it all started to fall apart for me was when I tried to apply that same logic to the rest of the game, especially when it comes to this game's controls and abilities. Because the more that I thought about it, the more that I realized what I was actually asking for. I was asking for this game to behave like every other game, to put all the...
There are some things in video games that should behave like every other game. Like, for example, like getting animation locked between if you pick up and you read a recipe, and then you exit out of that recipe, and then you go to read another recipe, you have to wait for the recipe, the animation from putting the first recipe in your pocket in order to open up the second recipe. Like, that's garbage. It is. It's garbage. Like, and there are some things that It's a standard for a reason. But overwhelmingly, that is purely in terms of, like, that is non-gameplay. Like, gameplay, I think almost anything goes. This isn't even gameplay. That's like menu management and like UI functionality.
Abilities onto a wheel, so I could simply just push whatever input that I need and use whatever I need in the moment, reduce everything down to just one action, clean, predictable, and easy to read. And then I stop myself, because what if I don't want that? What if I want to hook somebody with the hook and immediately follow it up with nature's grasp and rip a tree out of the ground and swing it into somebody in mid-fight? What if I want to grapple a wall and hit them with the palm strike? Why am I sitting here trying to force this game into a system that limits its own expression, lowers its skill ceiling, and cuts down the number of options for both me and the developer? We have been conditioned to expect a certain level of simplicity, a certain structure, clean inputs, limited bindings, predictable outcomes, basically the same controls that we see for every single game. And honestly, I am not saying that Crimson Desert nailed this. Their controls are an absolute mess, especially on mouse and keyboard, where half the prompts don't even work unless you're using a controller. But at the same time, this game is trying to cram everything onto a keyboard, everything onto a controller, and it's letting you do way more than you probably should be able to do.
There are a lot of overlap interactions that they could probably streamline and combine, and it would just simply make the game better, and it wouldn't sacrifice any real complexity, and it would just be an improvement. And I think that over time, you will see them do that, because they probably, like, this is a huge game world that they've invested a lot of money into. I think that they're already talking about doing multiplayer for the game. They're probably going to make DLC for the game. They're probably going to, this is like, they've built the foundation for this. They're going to capitalize on it. And in the process of that, I think you are going to see a consolidation of features and functions in a way that makes them more readable and legible for the average person. I think that's what's going to happen.
Exactly what's given this game so much freedom to get this far. I've criticized this before, especially when it comes to Eastern games, where their controls can definitely get a bit on the wild side. But honestly, I think that it's time to respect that kind of experimentation instead of constantly praising an industry that has become terrified of it. An industry that, let's be real, probably would have never let a game like this ever see the light of day. Because this is what happens when you have a game that gets out of control. This is what happens when scope creep wins. This is why menus get convoluted, why systems go unexplained, why all that foundational support that players are used to just isn't there. Now,
I never really thought about this until right now, but the thing that people wanted Ashes of Creation to be is kind of what Crimson Desert is. It's a maximalist, large-scale, open-ended game where if you want to, you can.
I'm not saying this is a good thing. That work still needs to be done. But I would rather take something risky and janky over playing the same thing over and over again.
That's true.
These developers just kept adding more systems, more mechanics, more ideas. It felt like they couldn't even stop. I even saw a post from one of their supposed developers who was talking about the exact same thing, saying that they just kept putting more stuff into the game even when it didn't make sense. And usually games like that do not survive. They get cut down, streamlined, watered down, or just completely canceled. This one didn't. And yes, that does mean we get a messy game. It means we get a frustrating game. Sometimes we get an absolute straight up piece of shit. And in some cases, this game actually is that as well. But these are the kind of flaws that we just don't see anymore. These normal video game flaws that we used to have all the time, because games like this never get a chance to exist in the first place. And honestly, I have to respect that they let this game get this far. I have talked about this a few times, but a lot of games now, they all just look the same and play the same and feel the same. And that's not because these developers just suddenly forgot how to make a video game. It's because they're just not allowed to do this. They're not allowed to.
There's like a standard. There's an industry standard for everything. And an industry standard for something, for everything inside of a creative industry is a huge problem.
Systems overlap like this. They're not allowed to let players struggle. They are not allowed to ship something that feels messy, even when that messy part is the reason why everything was made possible. Everything has to be clean. Everything has to be readable. Everything has to be for everybody. Everything has to make sense immediately. And in doing that, you lose this. Because most games aren't trying to give us freedom. They're just trying to guide us through an experience. And this game does not guide you. Honestly, this game probably has no idea what it's actually doing, even though people are finding a way to enjoy it. And it's just throwing you into an experience and having you figure it out. And yes, sometimes that's going to suck. Sometimes that is going to be frustrating as hell. But when it works, man, It feels like you actually did something with your time instead of just following instructions. And I think
I honestly think that if they clean up, like, there's basically one thing about this that is the internal game logic for this game is inconsistent. And I think that's one of the biggest things that if they fix that, I think this game could be a generational game. It could be a phenomenal game. But if you dial down the, like the confusing stuff, I think that it really could be amazing. Can they fix that? I think they can. They already are, to be honest. They are. And I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Excuse me. Almost fell down up the stairs.
that's why this game feels so extreme to so many people, because players are just not used to this anymore. We just don't get games like this anymore.
Nope.
We're used to games explaining themselves, smoothing out everything before anybody ever even notices, shrinking themselves down so that when a game like this shows up that's messy, unclear, and overloaded, well, it's going to feel broken. And sometimes it is, and definitely in this case, this game definitely is broken. But sometimes
massively,
I think this game is just asking for more than people are used to giving. This isn't a game that you're going to play casually. This is a game that you're going to have to meet halfway. You are going to have to deal with the frustration. You're going to have to deal with the issues. You're going to have to deal with the language. And you're going to have to figure out what they're trying to do. And a lot of people are not going to be down for that. And that is completely fine. But for the people that do, that's where those flashes come from. And that's what's going to keep you playing even when you're pissed off. Some people
keeps you coming back too. That's another huge factor.
Are absolutely going to hate this game, and some people are going to think it's the greatest thing that they've ever seen. And whether you think this game is garbage or whether you think this game is the second coming, honestly, I think that you both are right for the same reasons.
That's true.
Oh my God, we got the new Elder Scrolls. We got Korean Bethesda before GTA 6. This game is flawed. It has a lot of problems. It's very much unfinished. And I think that some of these developers shouldn't even have a job. The UI guy, fire him. The person that made the flying enemies,
put him in jail. I don't think firing him is enough. Because, like, what if you fire him and he gets another job? Well, now this is like a repeat offender. I think we need to put him in jail.
Definitely fire that guy. I almost threw my controller through my screen. First time I've tried to do that in a long time. Stopped myself, luckily. But you know, for all the flaws this game has, I have to respect that these guys tried to take this game this far. They took a game that was supposed to be an MMO and turned it into a single-player game and still put it out there.
True.
Most games would have died on the pyre to that. You know, Resident Evil 9 was a fantastic game. I love the Resident Evil series. I'm a huge fan. It's probably it's probably my favorite series of all time. And while I love that game, I know how to play that game. I know everything about that game. And something that I realized while playing this is that the lack of friction caused from a failure to experiment, even when something might not work, made me less engaged in the experience. While, yes, oftentimes with Crimson Desert, I am overcoming their flawed design, their own problems, I am problem solving in a way. I'm engaging with the game in a way that I haven't done in years. It actually feels like I'm gaming for the first time in years.
Gaming.
Again, while I am being incredibly forgiving here, far more than I probably should be, this game definitely needs a lot of fixing. A whole lot of fixing. And if the patchwork that we've already seen so far is a sign of bigger things to come, then this game is actually going to be looking pretty good. But while I cannot recommend this game, definitely not.
I would recommend it. I'd recommend it. After the patch and everything, and it seems like they're going to keep making it better, yeah, I'd recommend the game. I think it's a good game.
In good conscience.
I would.
If things work out, it could turn to be one of the best open world RPGs that we've seen in years. Here's to hoping. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it on social media. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. Come check me out live on Fridays. Join the Discord. Link is down below. Maybe I'll actually pin it in a comment, and people will be happy that I finally promote the Discord for the first time. Wow. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you in Piewell. Peace.
I'm gonna be real. I think Crimson Desert, if they make a couple more patches to make it good, I think if they ever make a DLC for Crimson Desert with the improvements to the patches and like the game logic and game functionality, I think that DLC could be I think it probably would be the DLC of the year. Like, if it's of anything of the same scale and quality as the base game. Like, I don't think Crimson Desert's going to win Game of the Year. I don't really see it happening. But I do think that, again, it is a phenomenal, amazing. If you like open world games, like I've played, I mean, here's the thing, right, guys? I mean, you look at Witcher 3, I've played that a lot. Wu Chang is kind of open world. I played that a lot. Where Winds Meet, you could say I've played this a little bit too. Like, I play the fuck out of these games. Tainted Grail. Like, where's another open world game? I'm looking around, seeing if I can find one. Well, anyway, the point is, I really like Neo 3. I beat the entire game. I played the fuck out of that. Cyberpunk, why don't you shut the fuck up? So, Monster Hunter Wilds, 167 hours. I love these games, and I think that it's a good game. I do. Like, and that's a game that, to me, is highly valued.